first thing we have to look at as a simple habit. There is one main thing. When I began to outline these messages months ago, I don't remember, it must have been 2 months ago, 3 months ago, I came up with a couple different things. I said there are essentially internal habits of a successful Christian. And then there are some external habits of a successful Christian. When you look at Christians, when you look at spiritual icons, when you look at the Billy Grahams of this world, and you look at all these people who've changed America, you ask yourself, what is it about those groups of people that is the same? What is it about those people that you can identify that is a characteristic in their life? And so is this over here, in their life. We need to know what are internal habits and what are external habits. And I want to say that there are some internal habits, and this is the very, very, very first one. When I wrote this down, I said this has got to be number one. There's one thing that probably is more important than any other thing out there. If you can excel at this one thing, you can almost forget the other 6 points. Because this will drive the other 6 points. You can do all the other 6 points, miss this, and still struggle. That's why this is number one. And it's simple. It really is simple. Years ago, I watched a documentary, and I don't remember who was doing the documentary. I remember it was on Apple computers. And one of the things they said about Apple was that they were trying to drive simplicity. That was their goal. They said, we are going to remove everything unnecessary in order to build something that is just simple. And actually, when you look at an Apple device, it's simple. There's no additional folds. There's no extra buttons. It is just simple. I think in the documentary they said we wanted to make a phone that it would be the only phone that you didn't need a user's manual for. It was simple. Now, while it was simple externally, there were some complexities internally, like microprocessors and software and all these things. But on the outset, it's ultimately a real simple device. So the first thing we're going to talk about is really actually simple on the outset, but internally, it's going to get deep, okay? So just bear with me. On the outset, rule number one, the first simple habit for a happy Christian is this: pursue wisdom. Pursue wisdom. We all like to pursue things, don't we? We all have a goal. At least we try to have goals, right? If you don't have a goal, you got to set a goal. There's nothing like people who just drive around not having a place to go, right? Have a goal in your life. This should be one of them. And our goal should have some purpose. It should have some purpose. We all want to have a goal worth attaining. We are all wanting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And that's why it's so disappointing when we find that the light at the end of the tunnel is actually a train, or that the grass that's greener on the other side is an artificial turf. We want to pursue something that has some significance and value. So the one thing that we should begin by pursuing is wisdom. We need to pursue wisdom. You see, for years we've been led astray. We've been led astray. We have been sold a bunch of lies. We have been sold a bunch of lies, and we have been told that an education, a degree, information will bring happiness. They say that all you have to do, every kid, and I'm not discouraging, I think kids should go to college. Don't necessarily think we should pay for it. I paid for my own college. Tens of thousands of dollars. Anyway, that's a whole other story. You see, we've been sold a bunch of lies. And the lie is that wisdom is not really all that important, but intelligence is. Nobody likes to be lied to. That's why being lied to hurts so bad. We've been led astray. We've been led astray for our whole lives. We've been told to pursue something else that makes us happy. And really, there's only one thing that truly brings happiness, and that's wisdom. And that is wisdom. Wisdom is not knowing the facts you apply, but applying the facts you know. It's not knowing the facts you apply, but it's applying the facts that you know. It's taking what it is you know about something and putting it in gear. That's true wisdom. Wisdom is the product of knowing and applying God's truth. If we can know God's truth and apply it to our lives, you will be happy. I promise you. I absolutely promise you, if you know God's truth and you apply it to your life, make it make sense. Don't just know information. Don't just know what it is to apply, but take what it is you know and apply it. That's the important thing here. So let's look at a couple things. First of all, wisdom is a virtue to apply. Wisdom is a virtue to apply. It's a virtue to pursue in your life. There's a great virtue in this. This is what made Solomon so great. This is what made Solomon so great. You see, it wasn't Solomon's wealth. It wasn't Solomon's parents. It wasn't Solomon's kids. It was wisdom. You see, we think that it's what made Solomon so great was the temple. My kids, he looked at me the other day. Ben, he says, Dad, where is Solomon's temple located? I got to think. I'm like, I don't know. He says, it's right here. I looked at him like, that's funny, kid. I'm going to use that one on Sunday. But see, it wasn't Solomon's temple. It wasn't Solomon's wealth. What made Solomon so great is he had great wisdom. Unparalleled wisdom. Let's look at some of these verses. 2 Chronicles chapter 1. This is the virtue that Solomon had asked for. This is what made him so great. He only asked for wisdom. Listen to this. 2 Chronicles chapter 1, verse 10 through 12. Give me now wisdom and knowledge. Let me back up here a second. Solomon had, as king, as judge, he had a dilemma. One of his dilemmas, and I don't know if you remember this story or not, but there was two women that were living in this one house together. Each had a baby of their own. And it just so happened that one night, one lady overlaid her baby and crushed, smothered, killed the baby. The baby was dead. Well, she got this great idea. She's like, you know what? There's another lady over here who's got a baby about the same age. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to swap these kids. I'm going to give her the dead baby. Well, now this lady wakes up and looks at this baby and says, I have a dead baby, but it's not my baby. It's hers. So this case was taken to Solomon. Now you can imagine a king who has to judge, and there are these two ladies with one living baby and one dead baby. And so the king asks, whose baby is this? Well, of course, the lying mother says, it's my baby, right? And then, of course, the other mother says, no, but it's my baby. And now you don't know what to do, right? I would have imprisoned both the ladies, and I would have raised a kid for myself. I mean, you got to have great wisdom. And Solomon had tremendous wisdom. And you know what he said? He said, give me a sword. I'm going to cut the baby in half. And of course, the one mother says, thank you, I'll take my baby. And this other mother says, no, don't cut the baby in half. I want you to have the baby. It's okay. And Solomon said, that is the real mother. Now, this takes a tremendous amount of wisdom. And when I think about having problems in your church or having problems as the king, this is a problem. You need tremendous wisdom. So, consequently, he asks for wisdom. And this is what he says to God. He says, give me now wisdom and knowledge that I may go out and come in before this people. For who can judge this thy people that is so great? Referring to Israel, his people. And God said to Solomon, because this was in thine heart, and thou hast not asked riches, wealth, or honor, nor the life of thine enemies, neither hast thou asked long life, but hast asked wisdom and knowledge for thyself, that thou mayest judge my people over whom I have made thee king, So essentially what God is saying, you've only asked for wisdom, you haven't asked all this stuff. He says, wisdom and knowledge is granted unto thee, and I will give thee riches and wealth and honor, such as none of the kings have had that have been before thee, neither shall there any after thee have the like. You are going to be the wisest and richest man ever. We think of Bill Gates as rich. Ha! You don't candle this guy. Solomon had money, and he was wise because he asked for wisdom, and he asked for knowledge. Now, ironically, Solomon could have asked for anything. He could have asked for anything. Just like you and I, we can ask for anything. We can ask for, Lord, I want a bigger boat, or I want a bigger house, or I want more of this, or I want more of that. And you know, that's what Solomon could have asked for. But he didn't. He asked for the one thing that he knew was the most important thing. And because he had that, God says, I'm going to throw everything else on it with you. I'm going to give you everything else because you asked for the one thing. Now, let me just face it, friends. We pursue all sorts of stuff. We pursue the fame, right? Even from high school, we have the letter jackets, right? You got to be popular. How many of y'all were popular in school? Bunch of losers. Okay, well, I mean, maybe that didn't work so well. I was not popular. I know it's really hard to imagine, isn't it? I was not popular. People didn't look at me and say, oh, there's Joe, look at him. And, you know, I didn't even know what a letter jacket was. I didn't even know I hardly wore a jacket, you know. We seek fame, we seek wealth, we seek companionship. And this is what people tell you, it's all about making you happy, isn't it? Seek companionship. You need someone to have you need to have a companion to be really happy. You need to have a spouse or a girlfriend or boyfriend. That's what we've been told. And we've bought this hook, line, and sinker, haven't we? And we have set out on a path for success in our life. And we have come up with this hypothetical scenario. Years ago, my wife was looking at pictures of these families and for their Christmas cards. There's all these happy families, right? And there's the picture of the guy, and he's standing there like this. And this wife is standing there like this, and they've got these adorable little children. And this is everything that a young woman wants. The guy could care less, okay? He just wants to know how he transported them to the photo place. He wants a nice car. Now, he doesn't care about all the other stuff, but this is what a woman wants. And they are told this. This is how it ought to be. We've pursued fame, and we've pursued money, and we've pursued companionship. And you know what? Those people still aren't happy. They still aren't happy because they lack wisdom. And you know what's interesting is it takes wisdom to ask for wisdom. It takes wisdom to ask for wisdom. You know, Solomon had to start somewhere, and I think he had to start with humility. And humility is important for wisdom, by the way. If you want to ask for wisdom, you got to be a humble person, because you know what you admit when you ask for something? You don't have the answer. So it has to start somewhere, and that's exactly where Solomon started. He knew that he didn't have all the answers, so he had to ask for them. When a person thinks that they've arrived, they've got a whole lot further to go than what they think. This is great. Socrates says the only true wisdom is knowing you know nothing. And I want to say that's about where Solomon ended up. When these people need to be judged, when these people need a response, and you are the one to give it to them, and you lack the answer, this is the place you're at. I don't know anything. And I want to know something. And if I know anything at all, it's that I know nothing. This is a virtue that everyone heard about. This is not something that was kept silent. And you know what? Not only did they hear about the wisdom, but they saw that the wisdom, that the pursuit of wisdom didn't only make him happy, it made everyone happy around him. Let's face it, you want to be around wise people. Listen to what is said here in 2 Chronicles 9. And when the queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon, she came to prove Solomon with hard questions at Jerusalem with a very great company. The queen of Sheba comes from afar and says, I have heard about your wisdom, Solomon. Now I've got some questions for you, and I'm going to prove you. That means test. I'm going to test you, and I'm going to give you some of these questions. And this is what she came with. She came with a great company, with camels that bear spices, and gold in abundance, and precious stones. And when she was come to Solomon, she communed with him of all that was in her heart. Kind of spilled the proverbial beans. And Solomon told her all her questions. And there was nothing hid from Solomon which he told her not. And when the queen of Sheba had seen the wisdom of Solomon, and the houses that he had built, and the meat of his table, and the sitting of his servants, and the attendance of his ministers, and their apparel, his cupbearers also, and their apparel, and his ascent by which he went up into the house of the Lord, there was no more spirit in her. I mean, she saw all of the greatness that Solomon had. Her whole goal was to come and to prove, to come and test Solomon. Do you really have what you say you have? And this is what she said. And she said to the king, it was a true report which I had heard in mine own land of thine acts and of thy wisdom. Howbeit I believed not their words, until I came and mine eyes had seen it. And behold, the one half of the greatness of thy wisdom was not told me. For thou exceedest the fame that I had heard. Basically what the Queen of Sheba says is, I didn't even get half the story. I didn't believe the story, but it wasn't even half of what I'm seeing with my own eyes. Happy, listen, this is wonderful. Happy are thy men, and happy are these thy servants which stand continually before thee and hear thy wisdom. You would have to think that this guy would be a tyrant. He's got all this stuff, and he supposedly has some wisdom. But the reality is, he wasn't a tyrant. His servants were happy. Why were servants happy? Because of his wisdom. His servants were happy because of his wisdom.